Hello again. In this video, we'll dive into creating the bottom sheet that users will interact with to add or edit journal entries. We'll take advantage of the native and improved bottom sheet API introduced in SwiftUI, which makes building smooth and modern UI elements even easier. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with all the latest tutorials. Thank you for your support. One of the challenges with implementing this bottom sheet is that currently SwiftUI doesn't offer a direct way to make its height dynamically adjust based on the content inside. Our goal is to ensure that the height adapts really well regardless of the font size, so the content fits perfectly and displays as intended. For example, you can see here that the screen size is for the iPhone 60 Pro, which is a pretty big screen. But now let's change it to the iPhone SE, this one. And as you can see, the screen is really smaller, like the old iPhones were. And now if we trigger this bottom sheet, you can see that everything fits perfectly. Nothing is truncated, nothing is out of the screen. So our method to dynamically adjust this bottom sheet works just fine. So yeah, it might seem a bit tricky at first to make this scale dynamically based on screen size, but don't worry, we'll go through these steps together and definitely achieve the desired result. So let's get started. First thing that we need to do is to go to this add button from the toolbar. So the right upper corner button right here. Just hold command and click on it. We'll jump right to it. And here we have a button with a label, but this button is missing the action that will happen after the user presses on it. So this is the place where we kind of need a way to trigger the bottom sheet visibility. So in order to do that, we're going to introduce a new variable. So let's write at state private var show sheet, type bool, and the default value is false because we don't want to show the user the bottom sheet as soon as he enters the screen. We want to make this boolean true the moment he presses this button. So in order to do that, we're just gonna go to the button and say show sheet.toggle. Toggle, you can think about this exactly as a light switch, toggle on and off, and that is exactly what happens here. So if you press this button, nothing happens, of course. We need to introduce a new modifier called .sheet. So under the toolbar, let's type the following. .sheet. We want this one with the onDismiss and content. Enter. For these presented, we're gonna use the show sheet boolean from above that we just created and just hit enter here. It will auto format it for you, hopefully. You never know with Xcode. For now, on the dismiss action, we will do nothing, but on the content, let's type simple text. Here we are in the bottom sheet. And now let's hit plus, and there we have it. We have a nice bottom sheet that appears. Of course, we kind of need to address some UI issues, but the trigger works just fine. We don't have a dismiss, so we have to drag it for now, but you can see that we have a really nice UI component with just a few lines of code. So now instead of using this text view, let's build a custom content for our bottom sheet. So in our extension, let's create a new variable called private var sheet content view, type some view, and let's start by creating a Z-stack to set the background color of this bottom sheet. So app color theme dot secondary background color. We kind of need to add an opacity of 0.6. I've seen that this works just fine, and we need to ignore the safe area. Let's add that text here for now. We will use some important modifiers that will help us polish this new view. These new modifiers are introduced in iOS 16, so they really help us improve our UI. So the first one will be presentation drag indicator. We want to make it visible. The second one is going to be presentation background. And we're going to use the ultra thin material for that, like the transparent one, modern one that Apple uses in general. And also the preferred color scheme is going to be dark. Let's see what we have now. But still we have this white thing here and I really don't like it. So the reason that this is happening is, of course, I forgot to just copy this UI component in the right place. We have to replace this with our constant component. There we go. And now we don't want to have the full screen of occupied with that bottom sheet. We just want a part of it. So for that, we're going to use presentation detents. I'm going to use the medium one. Let's check the result now. There we have it. You have that ultra thin material style applied to it. You can see through it, like in your drag, you can see the background. We have this nice secondary background color that we declared in our color theme. And all in all, it looks just better. I also think that the previews are just not working properly right now, because if you run the simulator and have that option of running the app only in dark mode that we set in previous videos, you can see now that when we expand this, we're not having the white background, we're having the dark one. So this is working fine on a actual simulator or device, but the previews sometimes are not quite working how you expect them to work. So if you're really not sure why your code doesn't work, even if you did all the appropriate things, you can try and run it on the simulator or on a real device and check again. I learned that the hard way, so just a tip from me. I also want to insist on this presentation detents that were introduced in iOS 16. Besides having this medium, we can also have a .large option. And now when the users see this bottom sheet, they can also choose to make it large and can be changed based on preference. So instead of using these predefined options, you can also use a fixed size. So if you say just height of 300, let's see how that looks. You can see that it's smaller. So you have that option too. If you know that you will have a fixed UI component, you can use that hard-coded height. But generally, I want to have this dynamic, so I'm not really using this. You can also use a fraction. So let's say 0.5, which translates to 50% of the available height that the system offers to this detent. So all in all, what I want you to remember about this fraction detent is that when a bottom sheet is presented, the system determines the maximum height that sheet can occupy. This is typically less than the full height of the screen, especially when considering device-specific save areas, navigation bars, or toolbars. A quick example would be the difference between an iPhone 16 Pro and an iPhone SE that doesn't have this island and has that cutout top section of the phone. So that wraps up this video, where we covered best practices for using detents with the native SwiftUI bottom sheet. In the next video, we'll dive into building the UI content for the bottom sheet. Stay tuned and see you there.